It's been a wildly diverging season for both Millwall and Sheffield Wednesday ahead of the clash at Hillsborough on Saturday. I think most Lions fans would agree this is shaping up to be the best season since the early 2000s when Mark McGee led them to the second division title and the playoffs in consecutive seasons. For Wednesday, it's fair to say it's been a season from hell and it could get worse. Hello and welcome to the News at 10 podcast. I'm joined by Joe Crann from the Sheffield Star. How are you doing?
I've been better, but yeah, getting by.
So would you say that's an apt description, season from hell?
Yeah, I mean, this has been, people talk about the bad old days of the 1970s for Sheffield Wednesday and how bad it was back then. But having spoken to, people that were around at that point, they've said that this is 100 times worse. I think the state of Sheffield Wednesday at the moment right now is just miserable. Like the team has been decimated. There's, it's hard to see where the next goal's coming from, let alone the next win. Relegation is all but mathematically done now. Relegation in February is not what you want to see, is it?
Yeah. And I'm right in thinking that it could be confirmed against arch rivals Sheffield United the weekend after Millwall.
Yeah, that would be the final kick in the shins, I think, for what has been a horrendous football season. I think, it's a weird one because Wednesday have been relegated since August. This Wednesday were going to get relegated this season regardless of what happened. We knew that the points deductions were coming. The administration points deduction, that was the final nail, and that was a long time ago now. So yeah, Wednesday dead and buried and have been for a long time. But I think to have that mathematically confirmed by your biggest rivals down the road is not much fun.
And yeah, you touched on it there. For people who aren't, we all sort of tunnel in on our own club, but how long has this sort of the points deduction and Chansiri sort of financial fraud, maybe is the best word, sort of certainly he's done a lot wrong. How far off could you see this coming? When was it obvious that this season was going to be that season from hell?
I mean, there's been sort of warning signs at various different points throughout Chansiri's tenure. He threw a lot of money at it in the first few years, and then the money dried up a little bit. And there's been points, through COVID where people weren't getting paid. There was a potential walkout. This is probably talking 2021. Went down to League One. It all settled down a little bit in League One for the most part. Obviously, got promoted with Darren Moore after the second season in League One. Darren got fired or left a few weeks after that. And yeah, it's all just been kind of a lot of downhill since then. Danny Röhl came in, did a brilliant job, kept Wednesday up when they probably shouldn't have stayed up. Had a very respectable mid-table second season. But sort of midway through that season is where it really started to fall apart. His relationship with the chairman deteriorated drastically. And the money problems really started to raise their head. 2025 was a bad year. Start to finish was a bad year for Wednesday. From fan forums of the chairman where he was spouting all sorts of nonsense through to, Danny Röhl not coming back for pre-season, transfer fee restrictions, transfer embargoes, point deductions, captain leaving. I'm sure we'll be talking about that at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked it out earlier this week, and of the 66 goals that Sheffield Wednesday scored again in all competitions last season, 53 of them were scored by players that aren't at the club anymore. It's been bad. It's been there have been sort of small warning signs for quite a while, but it was sort of 2025 that it all really came to a head. And the fact that we had players like Josh Windass and Michael Smith walk out for free, even though they were under contract because they hadn't been paid, that was one of those moments where you just thought, this can't go on for much longer. And obviously administration came along and took it off Chansiri, and now we're just playing a waiting game, really.
Yeah, and this season, there was an exodus of players, and credit to Barry Bannan for sticking around. Who has anyone sort of come out? Obviously, I saw Bannan scored a lot of important goals for the results he did get. But has anyone else sort of come out with credit in this sort of nightmarish sort of season?
It's a bunch of children, basically. I mean, I can't remember the exact figures, but I think there's been 25 academy players play this year. Or maybe it was 25 people that have made debuts for Sheffield Wednesday this season, potentially. But yeah, there's been a lot of kids that have come through and done pretty well for themselves. The problem Wednesday have had is that a lot of these kids weren't ready. They weren't ready to take the step up. So the rigours of senior football. Ernie Weaver came in, did brilliantly well. Teenage centre back came in, was unbelievable. I think Wednesday went on a 3-game unbeaten run when he was in the side, and then he got injured and was out for the season because he had to go off surgery. George Brown came in, another academy kid, did well, scored a couple of goals, got injured, came back, got injured again. He's still weeks away from playing again. So there's been a lot of that this season where youngsters have come in and got a lot of credit for what they're doing, but it's also credit in a horrible situation. I mean, Wednesday haven't won, beating Portsmouth back in September, haven't scored in 9 games. It's like, it's even when you're going like fair play, he's done all right. He's done all right in very rubbish circumstances. So I think I can't imagine what it's like for the players. Playing every week, knowing that you're in. I mean, like I say, even though it wasn't mathematically done, you're going into games in October, November, going, well, we're relegated. So what we're going to do with this? So yeah, it's like I say, there's been some pretty good performances from various different people along the way. Piers Charles is a shining light at Wednesday. He's one of the best young goalkeepers in the world, I think, with his distribution, with the stuff he's got in his locker. Did his shoulder early in the season, had to have surgery on that, was out for months, came back. I think he played 2 games, did his other shoulder, out for months. So, Wednesday on their 4th goalkeeper this season, I think, maybe 5th. So yeah, that's kind of where it's been. So there has been plenty of players that have come out of it with bits of credit, but like I say, unfortunately, a lot of them haven't played as much as Wednesday fans would have liked to have seen them done, just because the squad is being run into the ground every single week.
And I guess you touched on it there, just in terms of motivation for the players when you're obviously relegated, you aren't getting paid at times. What's been sort of keeping them going? Is it pride? Is it just a matter of playing for the badge? What's been behind that?
Yeah, I think personal pride. I think the manager's been key in trying to keep things together. Obviously, Henrik Pedersen's results wise, it's been pretty grim. But the way that he's held this dumpster fire together has been impressive. He's done it with a great deal of dignity. I think the way that he's sort of held the club together. But yeah, it's what else do they have to play for? I think the kids, it's a bit different because with them, they're playing for their futures. Like they're getting an opportunity that they probably shouldn't be having or probably wouldn't be having if it wasn't for the situation. So I think with a lot of them, they've got that to sort of drive them on. But that being said, I think that's also been probably one of the things that's hurt them as well. The injury list, if you go and look at the amount of injuries that Wednesday have had this season and the length of time they've been out for, I think a lot of it has come down to the kids maybe overexerting themselves and picking up a knock and not wanting to say anything because it's their chance and, making things worse, that maybe don't know their bodies as well as the older boys do. So yeah, all those kind of bits have come into play, but it's been really grim, and I think every single person of a Sheffield Wednesday persuasion cannot wait for the season to be finished.
Yeah, I guess the elephant in the room is of course Barry Bannan coming to Millwall. Would that be sort of the sort of final nail in the coffin, I suppose, and just summing up this season?
No, I think that one will be getting relegated at Bramall Lane, but it's one. But no, jokes aside, I think you mentioned people keeping it together and keeping things going. Baz was a big part of that. because of his quality, because of his leadership, because of his attitude. I think he left a massive hole when he left, not just because of him being a phenomenally good footballer and the actual physical hole that he left in the Sheffield Wednesday side, but I think as part of the squad as well. Sheffield Wednesday are a worse team without Barry Bannan in it, and I think that the changing room is a more difficult place to be as well without him there, sort of trying to set standards. And Liam Palmer's come in and taken the captain's armband, but he's not the creative force that Barry was. Barry was a sort of player that can find a moment in a game. I mean, you only have to look at his highlights package to see what he's got in his locker, and I think taking that away, I think because of what Barry meant to Sheffield Wednesday fans after a decade of being at the club, I think that was for a lot of fans anyway, was just like, yeah, this can't really get any worse now. I think him not being part of Sheffield Wednesday anymore and leaving in the way that he did, I think it was just really sad, mate. Like you said, it was just a really sad situation.
Yeah. I guess he did make his debut against Wrexham on Saturday. It was interesting because Millwall aren't used to playing with a player like Barry Bannan. He played at number 10. He had Casper and Billy, who usually plays at 2 6s behind him, and I could really sense in the first half he was getting very frustrated because they weren't feeding the balls into him. He was very, I'm sure.
He's not shy of letting his feelings down.
Yeah, well, exactly. Is he always been? He's very vocal about what he wants on a football pitch.
Yeah, and I think because of how good he is, like in his head, he sees what should be happening, and when other people aren't doing that, it frustrates him a little bit. But yeah, so you will see plenty more of that. I have seen Barry Bannan screaming and shouting at people hundreds and hundreds of times over the years. So he like I say, he's a man with very high standards, who's very good at football, and I think because of what he knows he's capable of, he does expect high standards of those around him as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I spoke to one of the midfielders earlier this week, Casper Denor, and he said because they're not used to playing, they usually go out wide and sort of put balls into the box. So he's not used to putting those balls through. And it got a bit better in the second half. I sense there's a real adjustment period coming. Just on where he's best used as well. Alex said he can use him as a 6, as a 10. Was he deployed he was used as a 10 against Wrexham? Is he deployed as a 10 a lot when he was at Hillsborough?
Yeah, I mean, in his early time at Wednesday, he played on the left a little bit because his delivery from open play is unbelievable. But yeah, he started to move more centrally, and he's basically played the bulk of his time at Wednesday through the middle, whether that is as a 6, 8, 10, one of those roles. I think Baz is great in a 10 role because his vision and his ability to pick a pass is so impressive. Like the amount of times that myself and Alex Miller, who I work with at Wednesday, the amount of times that we've watched games and sort of been sat next to each other and he's done something and we're just going, yeah, there's only him in this club that could have done that. He will find people in places that a lot of Championship players, probably, to be honest, a lot of Premier League players even couldn't do. His ability to see and find and make a pass is so impressive. And I think that was another thing that was tough about this season, was that he was all of a sudden surrounded by players that he hadn't really done it before with. He'd formed a really good partnership with Josh Windass, for instance. They're very close mates. And I think that it was quite difficult for him when all of a sudden he's surrounded by players that don't necessarily know his game. It's similar to what it will be at Millwall, but the difference was that they were, kids, youngsters who were 18, 19, 20. Whereas I think at Millwall, once people realise what Barry's capable of, and they can incorporate that into how they can attack, I think it can be a really good signing for you guys.
Yeah, I think as well as I think he was very much viewed as one. Well, they were interested in him last summer. I think they viewed it as a sign who could sort of in games you saw like the ceiling raiser, maybe against a tricky side, maybe against Wednesday on Saturday. Sit in and defend, and who can find that sort of final ball to sort of pick apart a defence. So it'll be interesting to see. Again, he threw him straight into it. He obviously didn't need much adjustment time because he's been playing so much this season. So I do wonder. Do you think he'd want to start on Saturday, or how do you think he'll handle the occasion?
Barry Bannan loves playing football, and will do so at every given possibility. He's the sort of player that like in playing a Carabao Cup team, and the whole team's getting changed, and Baz will be knocking on the door, going, "Now I want to play this." So yeah, he relishes the fact. He relishes the chance to be on a football pitch. I think it'll be quite difficult for him at Hillsborough. He's an emotional guy, as you saw in the scenes when he in his final game against Bristol City. Yeah, I think it'll be really tough for him. I don't think there's any getting around that. I think walking out on that field in the colours of a different club will be a very strange moment for everybody. I mean, it's weird seeing him in a different kit. He's so affiliated with Wednesday that even when I see pictures of Baz in like a Blackpool or Leeds or Bolton kit from when he was on loan or at Villa or Palace, like even that looks weird, and that was before he even played for Wednesday. So to see him in a new kit is really odd, and I do think it'll be difficult for him, but he's a mentally strong fella, and I don't think he'll have any issues turning it on if he's having a good day. I can't imagine we'll be seeing him celebrating that.
Yeah. Do you think I imagine he'll get a good reaction from the fans coming out?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And I would imagine that when the game is done, whatever happens in that match, I think that there will be a moment for him. Whether he goes and says goodbye to the fans himself or whatever it might be. But yeah, no, he will get a very, very good reception at Hillsborough, and I imagine we'll be hearing a fair bit of his song as the game goes on. Yeah,
and I'm sure it's hard to pick out sort of distinct style of play, but just is that because I spoke to Alex Neil about it earlier this week. They've lost 8 on the bounce, haven't scored since Boxing Day, all sorts of horrible stats you can pick from. And he said it really heightens a team's desire we can't lose the next one, especially after losing 4-0. We can't lose the next one. Do you reckon there'll be any attacking ambition, or will it be mostly just sit in and try counter, or how do you expect them to play?
I do feel there's been a lot of managers trying to be nice about Sheffield Wednesday's situation this season. There's been a pattern to a lot of Sheffield Wednesday's games throughout the course of the campaign. Really, is they start pretty well. They're competitive. They dig in. They do what they can. Then they concede a silly goal, and then by the time the game finishes, they've run out of steam. They've got no one on the bench who isn't 4 years old, and they lose 2 or 3-0. That's kind of been that's happened. We've seen that happen so many times this season, and I think that against Swansea the other day, Henrik moved to a back 4 rather than having a back 5. Wednesday got a few new signings in that gave the option to switch things up a little bit. So he swapped to a back 4, and they just looked a little bit all over the place with a new system. The aim was to try and get further up the pitch, have more players up the pitch, and they just don't really have much attacking capabilities. Unfortunately, they're a real sort of ramshackle team that's been lumped together. Joel and Dalla came in for Man City, who looked really bright against Swansea in patches. So he could be one to get Wednesday up the pitch. They sold Bailey Kadamatare. Ike Ogbo came in after a brilliant loan, and he's not scored a league goal since then. And that's 18 months ago, 2 years ago. So, they don't. Like I said earlier, it's difficult to see where the next goal comes from Sheffield Wednesday. They aren't very good at set pieces, defending them or scoring from them. So that's not really much of an option, which is where you think, for a team that's struggling, you maybe think we could maybe pick up a goal or two from that. yeah, I think there's been a lot of. I saw Millwall fans saying, after they'd lost and not scored again, well, this should be a very Millwall thing for them to succeed in this game.
Yeah.
Every single team that Wednesday have played for the last 6 months have said that, and Wednesday haven't scored past most of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's difficult to sort of talk about Wednesday as an entity at the minute because they're clinging on. They're literally just clinging on for dear life, hoping to get through to the next game without further injuries. There's player welfare involved in all of this. Wednesday are, they are literally getting bashed up against the wall, really. And every defeat now feels just like kicking a puppy, and it's it's not much fun. And I think you go into these games, and like I say, managers and players they have to be they have to be nice. They can't come out and go, yeah, we're probably going to batter these. But I think the situation at Wednesday is if you're a football team that plays Wednesday and you can stay in the game long enough, you'll win the game. Just because Wednesday will run out. The tanks are already empty. And by the time it gets to the 70th minute, you'll probably get a chance and you'll probably score it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was very, my sense was, Millwall are ruthless. They've been in great form. They're going to batter them, but there's always this sort of nagging feeling at the back of your head because Millwall really have had quite a few of those sorts of, especially a couple of years ago when they nearly made the playoffs. There's just a few stupid. They're excellent at beating the good teams, but against the bad teams they should beat. They don't always do it.
Sheffield Wednesday are masters of rolling out the red carpet. The amount of times over the years that teams come to Hillsborough and they're like, oh, they've not won away in 4 years. It's like, there you go, have that.
Yeah, I think that there's confidence but not complacency. Again, Casper Denor, who I spoke to, he really emphasised, and I guess part of it is none of them wants to be the manager who says something stupid, gives them some sort of like bulletin board material, then somehow they pull off.
Yeah, but I think there is also the element of like what you're saying is not wrong. Like if you do go into it, expecting to win, then there is a chance you don't because you are complacent. So I completely get it. But I do think there is an element of managers knowing that as long as they don't go into it going, yeah, we're going to beat these lads, don't worry about it. Like I think you'll probably be fine. Like I think the lack of making sure the team's not complacent is the reason for what the managers are saying. But I think that is the only reason, really. Yeah.
And if you had to, it's probably a bit of a tricky one, given everything. But if you had to sort of predict the starting lineup, what would you say? Who should Millwall be expecting on 11:45? Whatever it's
probably exactly the same as what started against Swansea. Maybe Marvellous Nakamba could come in and start. He brings a little bit of steel. He's a bit older, so he's a bit more experienced. But yeah, I think if you go and look at the team that played the other day, I think it'll be around the similar lines. Jerry Yates up top. It's like I say, it's there are not that many players in that Wednesday side that you look at and go, they're going to be a game changer for Wednesday at the moment, and it's a really sad place to be. And I think Wednesday fans are just going because they go to football games. You know what I mean? Like they've been going for decades, so they keep going. In terms of the starting 11, I would imagine it will be mainly because there's nobody else. If we're being right, like Wednesday, if you look at Wednesday's bench, it is literally a bunch of academy kids, and then like the game the other day, I think it was all academy players, and then Ike Ugbo and Marvellous Nakamba, and that was it. Like it's the Henrik is not spoilt for choice when it comes to rotating his squad.
I might as well give a stab at it because I think it's a bit trickier for Millwall. There was a point, obviously not the same situation at all, but about early December, didn't have a midfielder. All 8 of them were injured, which was really strange, sort of set of odd coincidences. And I guess minutes piled up and the more injury-prone ones picked up the injuries. So Neil had to sort of cobble together weird starting lineups at points, but they've got pretty much everyone fit. I reckon it'll be pretty much the same as Wrexham. So you're like Mihailo Ivanovic, Barry Bannan behind him, Femi and Camille on the left, and then Billy Mitchell, Casper Denor, Alfie Doughty, Caleb Taylor, Jake Cooper, Tristan Crammer. The big question mark is goalkeeper. They've just got this guy, Anthony Patterson, from Sunderland on loan. Yeah, great goalkeeper, started in the playoff final. But Max Crocom's also been great. And he started last weekend because they need to build Patterson up a bit. It's a bit of a dilemma. Do they go what worked or change it? So that's one. And maybe Bannan won't start. Maybe they'll bring in another striker. Josh Coburn is one who could rotate in. But it'll be, I'd imagine that Neil has already spoken about needing consistency. So I imagine he'll be looking to keep that. Again, a probably horrible question to ask you. If you had a score prediction, what would you say?
Same as many others, probably 2 or 3-0 Millwall.
Yeah.
I think Wednesday will keep themselves in it. I mean, the game against Millwall at your place was another good example of how Wednesday season's been. They stick around, they stick in the games for so long. They give a really good account of themselves. I mean, Baz was brilliant that night as well.
Yeah.
They do well, and then it comes to the time when the opposition gets to go into their bench and change things, and Wednesday don't have that ability. That's when it sort of the game shifts. And I know that night it didn't, but 1 goal turns to 2 and 2 to 3, and I think when Wednesday are just in a position where they can cling on for as long as they can cling on, and then the heads drop a little bit after the first goal goes in, and it just falls apart a little bit.
Yeah, I don't want to stick the knife in, but I'd say 2-0 is a nice sort of conservative, because Millwall need to bump their goal difference off as well. So I think, as every other team, they'll be looking to step on the neck and score as many as they can. But, I don't want to be over-ambitious and look like a mug. So, well, brilliant. Thank you for your time, Joe. I really appreciate it. Sort of outline what Millwall fans can expect. Because, again, I hope there's been some nerves settled, because I know there was a lot of nervy Millwall fans on Twitter when I posted my article about Alex Neil saying they won't take anything for granted. So I hope some nerves are settled. If you're going up to Hillsborough, I'll be up there as well. So, hopefully see you there, all the away fans, and enjoy.